I wanted to share with you something by the Black Alliance for Peace. They've hardly got any members on their YouTube channel, and they've got more members, and that's ridiculous. They're such a great, an incredible organization, Black Alliance for Peace, and so is the Black Agenda Report. And Ajama Baraka is, who was a vice presidential candidate in 2016 for the Green Party. It's such an incredible organization, and we all need to support it. And they've got a GoFundMe happening at present. And I don't know why they don't have millions of supporters, actually, but I guess they just need more boosting. You know, like they need more highlighting by everybody so that people become aware of them. And so they write the most, the Black Agenda Report writes the most incredible blog posts, and I've shared some on my channel. So anyway, Black Alliance for Peace requires donations, and they have a GoFundMe. And so I invite people to check out the link in the information section of this video. Please support them. I wanted to share little excerpts now from something they did recently, and just give some samples of the kinds of things that they're talking about. I don't want to try and talk about it. For one, I'm not a black person, and two, this is their organization and stuff, but I just wanted to uplift those particular organizations, just in case you're not aware of them. And we should all be allies of this movement, because it's an anti-imperialist movement. It is a international black leftist anti-imperialist movement, and it's incredibly important for all of us, not just for black and brown people everywhere in the world, but it's important for all of us, because we're all interconnected, and we should all be internationalists. So that's why we need to support organizations like this. So please check this out. Thanks for watching.
Good evening. My name is Ajama Baraka. I am the national organizer for the Black Alliance for Peace. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for being with us this evening for this very important event. The Black Alliance for Peace is an alliance that is in place in order to organize the masses of our people to fight for peace and justice. We understand in this alliance that we are in fact a peaceful people, but we also recognize that we are at war. And we understand that without justice, there can be no peace, and for justice, you have to fight for it. So this is a fighting formation, one that recognizes the responsibility of those of us who live at the center of empire. We are quite clear that our responsibility is to struggle. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, and we are preparing ourselves for the fight that we are immersed in. So tonight is part of that process of organizing our people, of attempting to try to understand what it is we up against and what we need to fight for. So we say to our people, and we say to you tonight, organize our people, understand that this fight that we're in is a protracted one, that it doesn't really matter who sits in the white people's house after November. The war against our people, the war against the colonized, will continue. And our responsibility is to make sure that this war no longer remains a one-sided affair. So thank you for coming out this evening. Let's organize ourselves. Let's understand the moment that we're in, prepare ourselves for it with the understanding that together, unified and clear, we in fact will win. Thank you.
The U.S. is birthed from savagery. Europeans committed genocide against native peoples and stole their land, all while kidnapping and enslaving native and African people to turn a profit. Now, over 400 years later, the United States is a massive empire. It has 800 military bases and at least a dozen colonies scattered across the globe. Ever since its founding, the U.S. has always been at war, and it's the only country in history to use nuclear weapons against people. At this very moment, the U.S. is engaged in at least 7 wars of occupation and regime change. The mission? To ensure U.S. businesses have access to land, resources, and cheap or slave labor. But the 1% also wages war against black and colonized people in the U.S., just as they've done from the start. Police continue to murder, brutalize, and surveil black people. Our communities are impoverished, starved of resources, and thrown in jail. All the while, police departments become more and more like occupying armies. And the military budget, well, it just keeps getting bigger. The Black Alliance for Peace was launched in 2017.
The Black Alliance for Peace, as an organization, committed to revitalizing the traditional anti-war positions of the black community.
The United States is the worst abuser of human rights in the world. If you look at the invasions, the proxy wars, the sanctions.
The powers that be are seeing a threat to the status quo.
It does not matter whether the United States government agrees with Maduro and his policies, because 6 million Venezuelans wanted him to lead them. As a sovereign people, they have a right to determine their own direction and future.
Everyone has a place in this movement. We must be organized. If we want peace, we have to be willing to fight for it.
Our campaign is no compromise, no retreat. Defeat the war on African black people in the U.S. and abroad. The campaign includes the demands to end police militarization, stop their training by the Israeli Defense Force, shut down AFRICOM, remove all U.S. military presence from Africa, defund the military, and close the 800 military bases around the world. Black people have always been the consciousness and change agents within this brutal regime. Now can be no different. We are in the heart of the empire, and we must remember our fight for liberation is connected to the liberation of black, brown, and working class people everywhere. It is time for us to stand up to oppose U.S. war and murder and defeat the U.S., EU, NATO axis of domination. That is why the Black Alliance for Peace was founded. And that is why we need you.
Greetings from Lenape-Hoking, the part of the land of the Lenape often known as Philadelphia. We honor the truth that this land still belongs under the governance of those indigenous to it. While my comments here will focus on the black community, I uphold the connection of our struggle to those whose land was colonized and whose land we are colonized on. Today, just 2 days after the 49th anniversary of our beloved revolutionary ancestor George Jackson's assassination by prison guards, just 16 days after the 50th anniversary of Jonathan Jackson's courageous effort to free his brother and other Soledad brothers John Clutchette and Fleeta Drumgo. Today, just months after the murders of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, and the resulting rebellion that has sparked protests and inspired freedom fighters across the world, we are here to discuss the current state of the ongoing war that has been waged against black people by this imperialist project of the U.S. and of Europe for generations. Over the centuries, there have been varied levels of clarity and confusion about how our fate as Africans are intimately connected into one global African family. But we must be very clear that the fight for our liberation demands an unwavering understanding of this connection. This connection is understood by black revolutionaries in Colombia and the Caribbean, in Cuba, in Venezuela, in Brazil, in Europe, and across the African continent. This understanding was demonstrated by the solidarity shown by our siblings in the struggle when we began to stand up together at once across the nation. We must also embody this understanding in our organizing here as we deepen and broaden our struggle and engage with our local communities. What we saw at the height of the rebellion was the important role we play here in the belly of the beast when we are determined to fight against the capitalist, patriarchal, imperialist monster that is the United States and its allies in Europe and NATO. The world is ready to follow. This is why black liberation continues to this day to be considered one of the most significant and dangerous threats to U.S. hegemony. When we are free, everyone is free. This freedom will never allow for actions such as the perpetual oppression, destruction of, and extraction from resource-rich black nations like Libya, Venezuela, and Haiti. So our freedom is perpetually under attack. What Gaddafi was establishing at the time that Obama bombed Libya for 226 days, in spite of the outcry from African leaders across the continent, was a free, self-determined, self-controlled Africa. An Africa that was moving toward taking charge of its own resources, ending the neo-colonial relationships with the West, and serving as a home for the needs and aspirations of Africans globally. That is why Libya was attacked. The black community was too confused to stand up for Libya. The actions being levied against the nation were commanded by the first black U.S. president, who gave cover to the white supremacist motives and actions of the state while creating a dangerous sense of loyalty to the U.S. within the black community here. An illusion among black Americans that we finally belonged. And so during the Obama administration, the black community was largely silent at destruction waged for the better part of a year against Libya, an African country. This laid the foundation for the AFRICOM program to expand across the African continent, further solidifying the military might of the U.S. in the region, the same region where Israel serves as an imperialist proxy state. Israel now is a training ground for police in our communities who use the same methods the Israeli forces use against Palestinians. The way George Floyd was murdered, the same method of pushing a knee into the neck of a detainee is used by Israeli military and police forces. And the guns and tanks that were deployed against our communities during the rebellion after George Floyd's murder, that were used to evict mothers and children from what had been a vacant home in Oakland just months before his death, thanks to the Department of Defense's 1033 program, those guns and tanks are the same ones that have been used against our family in Libya and Palestine and throughout the colonized world. The ways that the state seeks to disrupt is a massive tell for where our power lies. They try to make us believe that we are separate from our siblings that are coming across the border, or that immigration and border fight issues are not relevant to our black struggle. But we here have to know that many who cross the border are from black nations like Haiti, who have suffered ongoing disruption, corruption, and theft by U.S. agents, like in recent years, the Clintons. We have to know that Venezuela's majority population is black and indigenous, and that they are fighting to protect the revolution that was won under the leadership of a black and indigenous Chavez. We have to know and stand for them just as they stand with us, because they have yet to be confused that the borders of these nations that were imposed by the colonizing forces are more important than our historic, ancestral, and current connections. They make us believe that Africans on the continent and in the Caribbean are not aligned with us, when in truth they plan and prepare for our collaboration. They try to make us believe that women, that our trans, gay, and queer community are secondary in our communities, when there has never been and will never be a black community without us, nor has there ever been a black liberation struggle without our power and leadership. Today, we come together to examine the current state of the war that is being waged against us. We will explore the ways it manifests in each of our communities, draw deeper connections, and identify ways to further transform the analysis and organizing in our communities.
I think one of the things that is really important is that in the work that we do, we value independent political organization. We value the work that people are doing on the ground. Because I thought about this before, that there are so many types of types of work that we all get involved with, but all of it really hinges on the fact, do we really value the people who are involved in this struggle? Because the nature of oppression is it dehumanizes us all, right? We undervalue ourselves, we undervalue the other people who are oppressed as in that process. And the kind of work that we do has to really have love and upliftment in it. People have to see that this work makes a difference in their lives. It doesn't always mean that you're going to win. It doesn't mean that every struggle is successful. But what happens is people begin to learn to trust themselves as their own form of liberation. I think a part of that is respecting the fact that people know what's happening in the world, so that education is a part of that process. You always get a return on investment when you invest in political education and discussing ideas with people. Again, helping people to invest in themselves in their own organizational capacity, right? Not looking towards resources that will compromise us, right, is important. People being able to say, hey, we can raise our own money, we can get our own buildings, we can get our own books, we can get our own food. All this does is empower the people, right, so that they can see that there's a world that exist outside of capitalism and imperialism, that we don't need white supremacy, right, to live. As a matter of fact, you can live without imperialism and white supremacy in your life. So I think those are important concepts, and I try to boil them down to like these general concepts, because again, I've had a lot of experience with police brutality. Coming to somebody's house after their child has been murdered is a very important process, because until cameras existed in this world, right, Black people have always said that the police and the state have been doing this to us. And everybody always told us that we're exaggerating, that we're saying we're saying too much, that it can't be that bad. Now that you have a camera, we're finally able to justify all the centuries of reporting that we've had about our relationship to this colonial system, right? And now people are able to believe us. But the truth is that we shouldn't need a camera to have that kind of proof, that we should be able to believe in ourselves and be able to mobilize ourselves. So when I've come to a person's house and their child has been murdered by the police, and they want somebody, the first thing they really want is someone to believe them, to believe that their child deserved to fucking live, that they didn't deserve to die like a dog on the street. And I'm sorry I have to say it because it's important. This is what we're struggling for human beings to have the right to live, to have dignity. And that's what people want. You can build any program you want. If you don't respect the human beings, it's going to fail. You're going to build another system of oppression that is going to fail our struggle. And that's what's important that I wanted to share.
Say very quickly is that PE, political education, is very, very critical to the struggle. And the reason why I say that is because people are mentioning class in the chat, but our people, especially like Black working class people, don't even know that they're working class. And because of the idea of Red Scare, and because of the idea that the bourgeoisie, the ruling class, has set, would rather be defined as anything else but poor and working class. There is like literally a devalue of struggle that happens when people hear you identify as a poor person or a working class person. And people don't understand why would I want to be identified as poor? People make up all types of class analysis for themselves. They call themselves middle class. They say Clinton was the first Black president. Everything else to assimilate into a culture that wasn't meant for them, instead of tapping into the power of poor working class people. And that's something that we have to teach our communities, what power is. We're living in an age of struggle where structure and destruction and decentralization are being uplifted, right? But in actuality, we have to actually talk about what power is. That power isn't something that is oppressive, but something that we need to actually bring liberation here. If we don't garner power, if we don't tap into our communities, the most marginalized, we will never, ever be liberated. And that includes LGBTQ, TGNC comrades, and women, and allies who can be used in a struggle as long as we provide a plan. And the way that we can do that is to study. We have to know what a plan is, the difference between a tactic and a strategy, right? And I think that's something that people who are coming into struggle, especially right now, who are coming in because they see a George Floyd and they're jumping in, need organizers like us here to be on the ground with them, to help them study, to lead them into the work, to garner these organizations, because we have no idea how to do it. Our communities have no idea. And they're asking how. And we have to be able to have the patience to work with them, to show them how we do that through study. And the final thing that I wanted to uplift before we wrap is just that just going on for Comrade Namdi is like, another thing that we have to learn is tact. What you're talking, me working with families in Brooklyn with Akai Gurley's family and Daron Smalls' family and all these families, there are organizers who want clout, right? Is what we call it, clout chasing, or not really organizers, right? But want to stand with the family. I was with this family for a day and take a picture, but don't know how to talk to families, don't know how to talk to community members, don't know how to get points of organizing demands, won't take the time to have patience to build with these families and turn them into leaders, right? And it requires tact, like literally compassion in our conversation. We can agitate and be fiery all day, but we have to come back down and talk to our class, to our people, to families that are hurting, and say that we're here and let's build. And I just wanted to really uplift that, because that anger that that he was feeling wasn't at us. It was at a system that breaks you all the way down. And you have no idea how to fight. None. And then people come in as organizers and don't know how to really build with families and community members. And that's a whole nother skill within itself.
Yeah, land loss has been a really big part of our history and has to be a really big part, like land gain and reclaim has to be part of the revolution. So what are y'all's thoughts about those stories?
Can I say something to that then?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think early on, Malcolm was helping us to understand that land, as he said, land was the basis of revolution, that the fact that colonialism exists is to dispossess people from the land and the resources of the land. The fact that in North America and throughout the whole Americas, that the indigenous people were culturally willing to share the wealth of this land, and it still led to the theft of the land is important. If you want to make history right side up, those people who have been dispossessed have to be able to get access to the land and to the resources. Again, I think that question is also loaded, right? Because we're not trying to build a struggle where we create another a class of black landlords or brown landlords, that all of us have to be able to benefit from the resources of the land, that they belong to the people. Having land is key to self-determination and independence, but it's also, we have to be wary that it also is it allows the misleadership class itself to say that it's a part of a revolutionary process, but they want to stunt it, right, and steal the land for their own purposes. So it's very key, and everybody understands it. Again, this is why we see imperialism. This is why we see colonialism, because the land theft was the spark to help grow imperialism and to bring into life capitalism at its highest level.
That the idea of land grab, it's still a real thing. That gentrification is a recent, right, idea of what colonialization looks like. Right now, the demand for cancel the rents is national because we're in a pandemic. The idea of being able to stay in your home on a plot of land that was stolen from ancestors years ago. So it's all interpersonal and it's all intersectional. And it's something that we see that's happening in Africa. It's something that's happening in Haiti. Pierre can speak about this, that fracking is something that has been started in Haiti, or that the Clintons went to Haiti to gentrify the land of Haiti, right? So people are losing their homes. Or the fact that after the earthquake, you have millions of people in tents and Port-au-Prince while people continue to steal resources. And it's coming back full circle now, where people are doing rent strikes, where LA is one of the, and folks from Cali can definitely uplift this, that LA has like one of the largest homelessness populations in the country. And is currently, Skid Row is currently in a place of being gentrified now.
People get disempowered, right? People don't necessarily believe they have the tools and what it takes to successfully wage a campaign to make change happen. And so people who want to do the right thing, people who want to co-opt the movement alike understand that. And then it becomes well, who gets there first? Is it the people who are actually going to uplift and help the community find or like understand that they have the capacity to do that? Or is it going to be the people who are going to come in and get the pictures and use it to further their own personal career? And so once you educate people politically on like, hey, like baseline, these are the things that need to happen in order for change to happen. Like, you know, searching for like capitalist gain is not going to solve these problems. These problems need to be solved from the bottom up. Like they cannot be solved by just working with the system. You have to go against it. And once you can understand that, first of all, you can understand what the motivations behind why people come in and try to help you, because it's like if their motivations don't line up with actually like, you know, what needs to happen, then you're going to reject them. And also at the end of the day, political education can empower people to be like, we don't even need anybody to come in. We got this from right here. And like, it would be great if you could like stand in solidarity in other cities and locations with us. But we don't even need anybody to come in to garner the attention for the political movement that we're trying to do.
And then also we had some questions about, you know, what does it mean to form an alliance and how do we utilize, you know, allies to our best advantage? And also we had questions about like the specific aspects of the reparations movement, what our current political climate means for our movement for reparations, and how like the internal politics of the reparations movement like help or don't help our actual goal of getting reparations.
First of all, the match in our anti-imperialist stance was the key reason why we were attracted. And for those who don't know, we're trying to create a political party, an electoral party here, led by Black workers. And we want to be able to have organizers who, when they do run for office, have a voice around the international questions that face African people and other oppressed people. This has allowed us to link up with anti-imperialist forces, not just in our local area, but PACA is a good example in DC, and the kind of communication that we have with the base that is a part of BAP is important. It's allowed us also to literally have more connections in the local work that we're doing. I think for those who don't understand the international questions, when they come around Ujima, they're able to be exposed to these questions. They're being exposed to the organizers, and slowly but surely people get to have some discussion about international issues, even when we're dealing with local work. So I think there's a real good relationship and symbiosis that we use to move forward.
Like one of the things that's really important to us is in this moment is to make sure that that internationalist perspective is actually really integrated in the organizing work that people are doing. That is why BAP was created, in order to help to move that along, to move that important goal forward, and increasing that or returning that and broadening that internationalist perspective. And we want people to understand what's possible. And one of the things that's really been wonderful about that is exactly what you mentioned, Nnamdi, is the ability to get connected with organizers across the country and around the world who are organizing internationalists. So whatever it is that we're working on in our local communities begins to have this international perspective as it comes in, but also is able to be communicated out to organizers literally around the world. And that's one of the things that BAP has done really well, is building these connections with really highly analytical, highly connected to these issues individuals who can expand the work and expound on the work. We also have a campaign to close the military bases that's connected to the issue of the defunding the military. We are part of the coalition to close all 800 plus military bases around the world, and a part of the BAP-driven campaign that is a part of that campaign is the campaign to shut down AFRICOM, the AFRICOM program. And you can learn about all of our campaigns again if you go to the Black Alliance for Peace website. Just wanted to recognize the outreach team. So please, once again, visit BAP social media. If anybody wants to join, you can always go to the blackallianceforpeace.com, and there you'll see where you can become a member as an individual or as an organization. Members are all people of African descent, but if you are not of African descent, you can still support BAP as a supporter, as an individual, and as an organization. You can follow us on our Facebook and our Twitter, and we also do have an Instagram, so you can look for us on Instagram as well.
If you want to see Black Alliance for Peace provide a much-needed Black internationalist perspective to combat U.S. imperialist propaganda, give today. The warmongers and exploiters are not going to fund the people's liberation. Can we count on you to make a donation? And they have donate to Black Alliance for Peace, and you can give once a month or whatever, or one time. And I think that's a really important organization. It's really important that we support Black Alliance for Peace.